Welcome, everyone, to the Success Blueprint podcast. I'm your host, Ari Jakubov, and today I am here with a very special guest. And a little bit about this guest. He is 21 years old. He owns 11 properties and counting. I feel like it's growing by the day at this point.
Sure is.
So he is someone I have a lot of respect for. And without further ado, Andrew Dettling, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Honestly, every single time I have a conversation with you, it's awesome. So I'm really happy to be here.
Of course, man. We are on the same wave frequency, man. And so really why I brought you on here is I have a lot of younger listeners as well. And I think it's very inspiring when people are young and successful. It's one thing to be successful when you're 60 years old and have 100 million. That's cool, but it's not like impressive. What's impressive is being young and successful. And that's really what you want. To own 11 properties at 21, I want to understand, and I want the viewers to understand how you did that. And I want to backtrack and start from your story, man. Of
course.
Because I think 3-4 years ago, you were in a completely different situation. Let's hear about it, man.
Yeah, I'll just start with, I'm originally from Ohio. And so being in Scottsdale now, two totally different places, totally different people, a totally different, I'd say, culture. And going back years ago, obviously, where I started, when I started my company, I was doing DoorDash at night. I worked at the gym, my local gym. I was really motivated. I wanted to make something happen. I just didn't know what. I didn't know where to go. I didn't have a direction. And I would say starting out, man, it's been quite a journey. I will say that. But it all started in Ohio. So I was super young, obviously. Didn't have a whole lot of money, didn't grow up in a big fancy house. All my friends were in much better positions than I was. And my main motivation really was, I would say me getting into real estate was in a way accidental. I wanted to find a job that I could work. I know there were laws at the time. I was 16 years old. And so every single job, essentially, they said, oh, you could only work these hours and do this. And I'm like, I just want to work under the table job. I'll do whatever. I'll work all day and night. I just wanted to get this job over with so I can get a car. All my friends were getting cars. I had to share a car and with my mom actually, which meant I never got the car. Essentially, I really wanted a Jeep Wrangler. I'm super into cars. And so that was the first on the list. So I got a job cleaning up Section 8 rentals, rough Section 8 rentals in Akron, Ohio. And so for those of you who don't know Akron, look it up. It's really bad. And so that was my hometown. So I was literally right down the street from the worst of the worst. And I cleaned up every bodily fluid from the ceiling to the floor, everything. I've seen everything. I wasn't into real estate. It was more of just a job to make some cash. I was getting paid, I believe, $6 an hour, and I could work overtime. I was just working. I just wanted to put my head down and work. And essentially got right into that. I got to know the owner of the company super well, absolute baller. He does the craziest stuff. He owns thousands of homes in Akron.
Weren't you telling me you met him because he pulled up and was it like a Rolls Royce?
Rolls Royce, Cullinan. Yes.
That is insane.
And so we were cleaning up. He pulls up and I'm like, that guy doesn't live here. And I was expecting, and they were telling me he was the owner of the entire company. And I was like, I expected this intimidating guy comes up, scary. Nope, just like an old Southern dad. Awesome. Wow. And so I talked to him. He was one of my biggest mentors, and he really taught me every single thing I could possibly need to know in order to one day get into real estate. And I remember sitting in his office and looking at Tempe real estate, and he's like, dude, buy a house. Just one way or the other. He's just figure it out, make it happen. If I was able to do it, you can do it. And I think early on, he gave me the inspiration like, hey, anything's possible. You can make anything happen with the right network, with the right connections, and the right knowledge. And I think today that's not something that's taught to most people. A lot of things that are said and taught is, hey, here's your path. You can take a high path, you can take a low path, but here's your path. And I think he really instilled in me that, hey, go off the path. Maybe it will be a shortcut. Maybe it will take longer, but maybe your destination will be better than anyone else's. And so my mentality was always just, hey, I'm not going to take the path. If I end up at a really bad destination or a really great one, at least I made my own. So essentially, I started there. Obviously, I learned so much from him. He reshaped my mind when it comes to business, when it comes to real estate. And I think I brought those principles and that mindset in with me when I eventually moved to Arizona. So at 18, I moved to Tempe. Obviously, ASU student, that's what brought me out here. And going from Ohio to Tempe was crazy for me. I lived in Ohio all my life, a really small town, and I realized very quickly the money that I had saved up for my move quickly dwindling, like fast. And so I got 2 jobs, working at a gym, doing DoorDash. I would say I was the best DoorDasher in the entire city. I was on it. I was on it.
Professional food deliverer,
I was a
man. What a title, dude.
I was. That was my
They should have
title.
gave you a medal, man.
I know. I should have gotten a DoorDash award or something.
Yeah.
I kinda my idea was how you do anything is how you do everything, and or how you do everything is how you do anything.
Yeah, like how you do one thing is how you do everything, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
completely agree.
and I just was like, it doesn't matter what job I'm working. I could be working a super high tier job or a super low tier job, but I'm gonna be the best at it. And so I obviously worked at that gym, did DoorDash at night. Throughout the day, I went to class. That was my life for a while. And moving to a city with so much going on, so many people doing so many different things, I think it upped my mindset again. I go from this small town. These people grow up, they stay in the town, they do well, they do their thing. And so moving from that small town to a big city like Tempe, I knew I was like, man, it gave me the inspiration to absolutely kill it in all facets. And so my mindset was, hey, I really don't care what I do, but I got to be doing something. So that's when I started studying to become a real estate agent. I started taking the real estate courses and I started one way or the other trying to get my first deal very early on. And so essentially, I had just turned 19. My money was, like I said, quickly dwindling, working DoorDash, working at the gym, full-time student. I had just signed up for my real estate agency classes. And so my schedule was packed. And I was still, my expenses were a little bit higher than what I was bringing in. And so I knew I was like, man, this is just not, oh, I know I'm young. I
Not
know
sustainable.
it's not.
Yeah.
And I knew I just needed to make something happen. And what I decided to do from there was essentially start what is today my real estate company. And my first idea, the first iteration of my plan was I'm just going to call every realtor, everybody I could possibly call. I needed a big network. That's something that I learned from the beginning is I needed a big network at the very least. And so it's funny looking back at it, I was so naive, but I called and called and called about seller financing, about creative financing deals. Obviously, you can't just get on the phone and get a seller finance deal like a lot of the internet says you can today. There are way too many people, in my opinion, I see on the internet saying, oh, get on the phone, seller finance deal, get your first house, do it again, and then boom, you've made $1 million. The reality is breaking the barrier into this industry, you get right into rough waters. It's
Mhm.
rough. It's a hard industry. You're facing off against people who've been doing this for such a long time. And I realized that very quickly.
Yeah. So your goal when you got your license, right? You got
Mhm.
your real estate license at 19, and then was your goal to do a first like transaction as a realtor, or was it just to own your first house?
It was actually, it's funny. I didn't want to be a realtor necessarily. I knew I wanted to do the real estate investing side
Okay.
because that's what I was really passionate about. And the reason why I went out and the reason why I studied to get my license is because I wanted to do something. And so I knew that could help me one day with my investing. And it was just better than not doing anything at all. And so I didn't know if I was going to use it or not, but in my mind, it was better just to take the action. And a little context of my situation, I would be studying, I'd be working all day, and I'd be driving around getting food. And man, I would see these bars packed with all these kids just getting to college. They're having a great time. And I was like, man, am I making a mistake not living it up? Because I wish I could tell you, hey, I knew all along I was doing the right thing, but I didn't. My entire environment was all based around having fun. And so I thought I was weird that I didn't have friends. I thought it was weird that all I did was go back to my one bedroom, one bathroom apartment and work and study. And so I studied on my free time. I studied the markets. I studied real estate, the history of real estate, the history of legislation around real estate. And that's just kind of what I did in my free time. And everybody thought I was super weird for doing it. But anyway, I essentially I knew that I knew what I wanted to do. I knew what my final destination was, which in my opinion, I think that's always the first step. Breaking down what you want and reverse engineering that.
Yeah.
And so as a 19-year-old, it's hard to think about what you want. And so I really thought deeply about what exactly I wanted to get into because I was under the impression that I didn't have much time. And in the reality we're living in right now, I don't know if everybody has all the time they think they do. It's like I got started at 19. I bought my first house at 19.
I want
And
to learn how you did that, but
yeah, we'll
yeah.
get into that. I bought my first house at 19 and I still thought I didn't have a lot of time. I'm 21 now with almost $5 million dollars or over $5 million now, excuse me. And I still
Make
don't,
5 million in real estate.
yes,
Oh,
5 million in real
dude,
estate.
that's impressive.
Oh, thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. And 21, 5 million in real estate. And I still feel like I don't have a lot of time. I still feel like I'm like, there's a voice in the back of my head that's, hey, man, like you're doing great. Be happy, but not satisfied. Keep going out there and keep killing it because eventually it will just get harder. And for the goals I have, for what I want, I can't waste any time. And for that younger audience that you were talking about, I would say one of the biggest pieces of advice is everyone tells you you have time. Everybody tells you enjoy, you've got time, worry about it later. And the way I see it is I think the happiest people are the people that are working very hard in an industry that they love so much. They got started early. They are getting a head start on everything. I just think the mindset of don't worry about it is problematic. And I'm not saying to cut everything out, but what I am saying is get on it now because you see these young guys driving around in Lambos and Ferraris and you're like, how do I do that? It doesn't come easy. But getting back to, as you said, how I got that first deal. Essentially, what I went out and did is I knew I needed capital. There's no deal ever that requires zero capital. And so unless, you have a crazy skill set or crazy knowledge or there's other value you can offer, it won't cost you nothing. And so I knew getting into it, unless I bring one of three things to the deal, whether that's a track record and reputation, whether that's capital, or whether that's knowledge and hard work, I didn't really have any of that except for the hard work part. And you still need to fight for that opportunity to get sweat equity in these deals. So I needed to go out and raise capital. And that was the reality I came to after a lot of calls trying to avoid it. And so I would say the first step is no matter what in this industry, you either have to have knowledge, a network, capital, and most times you need all three of those. So what I went out and did is I went out to the biggest neighborhoods in Paradise Valley. I would say the nicest area of all of Arizona. Seriously, the most beautiful area in the entire state. And I knocked on doors. I knocked on doors. And essentially, my goal was to raise money for my project. So I would pitch essentially. I'm going to your house, right? You've got a big mansion in Paradise Valley. I knock on your door. And first off, you would close it immediately. That's how the beginning of it went. But I would knock on your door. Hey, I'm Andrew Dettling. I've got this opportunity in Tempe. I know you're local. You know the market better than a lot of people from out of state. Here's the opportunity. Here are the numbers. Here's why this is better than anything you could possibly do in the market right now. Was it not? I didn't know the market as well as some others, but in the way I saw it and what I believed is this is the best you can do. Students pay more for the same house. And that's because it's broken up. It's tougher logistically on the owner. They pay a premium for that. And where a single family would go and rent the same house for 3,000, 4,000, students will rent it for 5,000, 6,000. And so I saw that opportunity as a student. And I think one of the benefits a lot of students have, say you're a student going to college right now and you're trying to do exactly what I did. Understand your market first off and understand how you as a student has an advantage. Understand, how do I have a leg up on my competitors? So I did at the time, because it was almost like I was the closest to my clientele. I knew what they wanted and sometimes more importantly what they didn't want. I had that direct network to reach out. I could have wait lists while other houses are sitting on Zillow with vacancy costs. And so out of the gate, that was my differentiator. And going back to my advice for a 19-year-old in college with no money that wants to have a $5 million real estate portfolio is, you got to be different. If I'm an investor and I see you at 19 with no sales experience, with no big skills and no track record, and I see another guy that's offering the exact same thing, it's no brainer. I'm not going to go with the 19-year-old. So you have to make yourself very different at the beginning. That's the most important part, because it grabs other people's attention, it creates buzz, and then you got people talking about you. And so that's some of the knowledge that I can pass down from my mentor. Create the buzz.
Smart.
You want people to talk about you. And so that's what I did. There were some calls that I would get on later on, and I would say, "Hey, my name's Andrew Dettling. I'm looking for this and this." I'm talking to a real estate agent I had never talked to before. They're like, "Are you the frat guy who buys houses?" And I'm like, "That's me. That's me. I'm the frat guy who buys houses." And so even people that I've never spoken to, in one way or another, they know that there's this super young kid that's been buying houses, that's been beating out the competition, that's been doing better than a lot of older investors that have been in the market for way longer. And the way I've been able to do that is I've been different. I bring a different energy. It's a very, I would say, it's a boring industry if you look at it from a real estate investment
Oh,
side.
totally. Oh,
And it's just like the finances, it's money, the debt, the interest. I brought the energy to it. And so I think that's what a lot of investors loved at the very beginning. Going back to that first house, knocking on doors, I was in the 115-degree heat in a suit, just like this one, and knocking on doors all day. And in my mind, the entire time, I was like, shoot, I could be working at the gym right now, because I'm taking off time at the gym to go do that. And to quickly expand on that, I think that's a problem that a lot of people have. Not that necessarily.
leaving the comfort and stability of like their 9 to 5 to be able to build something outside of that.
Yes.
Yeah, because like the
Right.
time you're not actually at the gym
Mhm.
making money, you're door knocking and you don't have any income coming from that, or at least
Exactly.
nothing guaranteed. So I totally I get that. It's a scary fear, man.
It sure is. And on top of that, you as an agent yourself, you know that market, it's not guaranteed as well. And it's just like you're exceeding pretty much 99% of agents. And the reason why is because you took that leap from comfort to, hey, this isn't guaranteed. And I remember when we first talked, you were like, hey, it was a big, scary leap. It was a jump, but I knew I had to make it and it wasn't guaranteed. And I took a risk and that risk paid off. And
Yep.
so in the back of my mind, it was two forces going back and forth. Hey, here's the gym. Here's comfort. Here's that paycheck. Well, hey, here's something you believe in, but this isn't going to pay you and you don't know if it's going to work out. And they go against each other. And I decided I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. And I did it for a very long time. And I kept on talking myself out of it and right back into it. It was hard, especially when I took a huge pay cut, especially when I had classes, I had two jobs. But after a while, I would say 2.5 weeks of doing it, I knock on this guy's door. Big, beautiful corner lot house. It's gorgeous. Probably one of the most beautiful houses I've ever seen. And keep in mind, every single time I knock on a door, my pitch gets a little bit better and better. And so, even if I didn't get a single investor from this, I still got value in that I know what pitches work, I know what pitches don't. And so I can custom tailor my pitches to the person. I can custom tailor my pitches to that area even, and kind of read, okay, who am I talking to? Who am I pitching? Am I pitching an older guy that's trying to be very safe? Or am I pitching a young guy who just made a bunch of money that just moved here? into this beautiful neighborhood. And sometimes, in my opinion, you don't always pitch the idea, you usually pitch the person and you tailor an investment plan to the person. Anyway, knocked on this guy's door. Obviously, I'm sweating bullets because I was just out in the desert all day knocking on doors
Mhm.
in a suit. And he opens the door. It's this old man, and he has the biggest smile on his face. And he's like, "How can I help you today?" And I'm like, "Sir, my name's Andrew Dettling. First off, I would just like to say those vines on the side of your house, absolutely gorgeous. Love that touch." And he's, "Oh yeah, I built this house. I did all that." And little small talk at the beginning. And I just said, "Hey, this is my investment plan. This is what I'm out here doing. This is what I want from you. I hate door-to-door salesmen too. I'm going to keep this very short because you're obviously very busy or else you wouldn't be living here. And so this is my pitch." And he had the biggest smile on his face and he's, "Wow, I love it." He's like, "How long have you been out here doing this?" I'm like, "Just about 2.5 weeks." And he's, "That's awesome. How much money have you raised?" And I'm like, "None yet. But statistically, if I'm out here for long enough, I'll be able to raise the money that I need for this deal." And he absolutely loved it. It's just showing your grit. Nobody wants to go out and knock on doors. It's scary. It's inconvenient. It was 30 minutes away from me every single day. It was hot. It was uncomfortable. And I got doors slammed on me. I got told to leave. And he absolutely loved it. So he's like, "Come in. Let's sit down. Let's talk."
Wow.
So I'm walking through this big, beautiful house and gorgeous grand piano, huge chandelier, like it's huge, beautiful. And I'm like, "Man, I've never gotten this far. I've never been invited inside the house. So I need to kill it. This is my opportunity." So I sit down with him. I kind of tell him, what I came from, what I've been doing, why I think this will work. And after 20, 30 minutes of conversation, he looks at the papers that I have and he's sitting there looking at them. And he looks at me with a very straight face and he's, "I'll do it, but you better work your ass off. You better work tirelessly every day because this is an opportunity that most people don't get." And I'm like, "Oh, this will be the best investment you'll ever make." I didn't know how it would go after that deal. I didn't even close on a deal, but I knew he's taking a chance on me. I don't care one way or the other. I don't care if I don't make a dime from this entire investment. This will be the best investment you ever make. And so from there, he talked to a couple of his golf buddies. Next thing you know, I was completely funded. And so
How much was the funding?
it wasn't that much. It was like 40 grand.
Okay.
That's all I needed. And for those of you who know some of the more technical things, I use what's called a debt service coverage ratio loan. Awesome product. Now, in my opinion, I think it's a lot harder to get a mortgage. It's a lot harder to get a DSCR mortgage. It's a lot more difficult to really do anything when it comes to your first deal because now there are a lot of requirements that you can't even get a DSCR if it's your first house. That's what I did. I ended up raising it all. I ended up closing on my first deal. And so from then, I thought I was the next big real estate millionaire. I thought I was the man. Nothing was stopping me. I'm buying 20 houses this year and I'm going to be on a yacht by the end of the year. And boy, I was humbled. And so I think in every single story of success, there will always be a moment where you're absolutely humbled because I think that's important for success. You know, what I'm about to tell has one, your story, same thing. There's a moment where you're sitting there and you're like, "Damn, this is a hard thing that I'm doing." And so I think on the other side of that roadblock is just a win. And so every single time you beat a roadblock, you get another win, you get closer to your goals. And going into my second deal, it's a very detailed story, a lot of small moving parts and details. But essentially, what had happened was, like I said, I was going into it like, easy. I'm going to close on this deal, make some more money. Mind you, the first deal, I didn't accept one paycheck. Every dime that I would have made that was earmarked for me, I kicked back to my investors. They were extremely happy. So they invested more. I had a couple more investors since then. This was a much bigger deal. So I was raising almost 90 to 100,000. And so I was still 19 at the time. And so essentially I got these wires in. I was under contract with this deal. The Binzer had just closed, which is basically the inspection period. So I was in the midst of this deal, which means you got to move every single day. It's very important for you to do everything you're supposed to do. And if you get behind, you're in a really bad spot. You risk getting sued. You risk losing the entire deal, losing all the money you put in that deal. And so I wasn't worried because my first deal went so great. So I got under contract. I had everything figured out. I knew exactly what I was doing. I had a little bit longer with my other house, with tenants being in there. So essentially, moving into this deal, I knew I was like, I'm not worried about it in the slightest. And like I said, boy, was I humbled. I accepted these big wires. Essentially, my bank flagged it. The wires were frozen. My entire bank accounts were frozen. All the money that it took to fund this deal, I didn't have. And so from there, basically it was a chain reaction. One thing happens with your bank, your mortgage is held up. Then title and escrow are held up. Then your insurance, everything's held up. So I was sitting there watching all this happen with no control over it. And I was like, "Oh man. Okay, now I understand. Like I get what this industry is." And real quick, I needed to be on my toes. I needed to fund this deal. I needed money in this deal. And so I still had to pay money. I had to put money in this deal. And I looked at my bank account. I think I had $36. I needed thousands of dollars. And so I'm like, man, I got to figure something out quick. I sometimes get in crossroads in business where there's a loss and there's a roadblock. And so to minimize damage, I need to sacrifice something instantly. If I wait any longer, it will get worse and worse. And so I've been carrying out that throughout these last couple years in business. And this is exactly where I learned it. It's kind of like a plane in the air. There's too much weight. You either crash or you get rid of weight. And the longer you wait with all that additional weight on the plane, the lower it's going to go. And the higher chance, the higher probability you have of crashing that plane. And so I was right there in the midst of it, learning it the hard way, by the way. So I knew if I waited any longer, I'm just going to lose more money. I'm just going to be closer to losing this deal. I could lose everything. And what I was faced with is I would lose a deal. I would lose all of my investor money. I would probably be sued. I'd have to move back to Ohio. Every person that said, "Hey, Andrew, it's not a good idea to start this real estate firm," everybody told me that I shouldn't do it before I bought my first house. Everybody, even people I respected, even successful people, somewhat, they told me maybe it's not the best idea. Maybe just go to college, learn a little bit about the market. And maybe when you're out of college, you've got a stable job, take some income, save up for a year or two, and then maybe think about buying your first house. And so
That's the safe route. It's funny because when I had the same thing. People would
Mhm.
tell me that too when I was going to
Right.
drop out of college. And that's people projecting their own fears and limiting beliefs onto you. And it could be out of love because they truly want the best for you. But at the end of the day, it stems from their own fears and insecurity. That's really what it is. And I applaud you
Mhm.
for taking that risk any successful entrepreneur has. So
Yeah,
that's,
thank
that's
you.
great.
And I saw the big difference in what my real estate mentor was telling me to do and what these other people were telling me to do. And like I said, the difference was my real estate mentor was like, "Hey man, jump into it. Jump in."
And were you still in communication with your mentor at the time of all these, like this second deal happening and the
I
first deal?
was. I
Okay,
was.
so he was guiding you through it, would you
He
say?
was guiding me through it, but here's the thing is I had just closed on a deal and I felt like $1,000,000.
Mm,
And I wish I reached out for more help.
ego. Yeah.
It's the ego.
Yeah.
And the ego got in the way. And what happened was I was in a worse spot because I had ego. I had just closed on a deal at 19 and I thought I was the guy. I thought I was the man. Everybody else did too. While I was losing money, while I was about to lose all this investor money, I was going to get sued. I was going to have to sell my first house and move back to Ohio and work a fast food job to pay off all that debt for the next 5 years. That's what I was faced with. Well, everybody saw me as, "Oh, that's the kid who just bought a house alone, no one else." And I think for young people too, that's a good example of, hey, if I just had put my ego aside, I would have been in a better position. And I think another thing starting this company so early is it is hard to, and I wish I could say that, oh no, it's easy to put your ego aside. It's easy to not feel egotistical and cocky when you do the things that most people don't do. But sometimes it is something that you actively have to think about and actively have to practice is putting your ego aside. I just think about, hey, I'm doing great, but man, I've got so much to learn.
Yeah,
Man, I'm not in the position I want to.
totally.
And it's unfair for me to compare myself to other people that aren't really doing much because A, that's not a good comparison. That's not who I should be comparing myself to. And B, I shouldn't have an ego when I compare myself to someone who does nothing. I should be comparing myself to a guy who just closed on a $100 million deal.
Mhm.
Then how do I feel about
That's how you
myself?
grow.
Yeah. And so going back to the story, it's like, I didn't want to reach out. I didn't want to record like we were talking about. I wish I had clips or I wish I had documentation or video of or anything about these moments early on in my career when I was failing, but I was too ashamed to record or talk about it or do anything. I knew what I had to do. I knew I needed to throw weight off that plane or else that plane would just get lower and lower. So what I decided to do was I was living month to month in the apartment I was renting. I decided to sell all my furniture and I got a good chunk of change from that. Then the money that I had saved up for rent coming into the next month, I just figured I need that. I can't have an apartment. And so I decided to end my lease. I moved all my stuff into my car, and that was my home. And it's funny, at the time, my friends and I were joking around about how nice it is to work from home as a DoorDasher
Mhm.
because essentially that's what I was doing. I was DoorDashing in the place that I was essentially living in. I was working at the gym, filling up these gallon jugs of water, taking showers at the gym. And once you realize that you can live like that, it's really hard to compete and fight with someone who can totally live in their car at any moment. I didn't have a whole lot to lose. I didn't have a huge mortgage and a family. And I didn't have all this and that. I didn't have 6 cars and this and that. I could lose everything and nothing's going to stop me. And so that was already very rough because I went from moving to this new place to quickly realizing, hey, I need to make some sacrifices here. And I had no direction. I didn't know where I was going to go. I'll keep saying this, but I wish I could sit here and tell you, man, the whole process, I knew that this was going to work out. But man, I was terrified every single day, every single night. I couldn't sleep because I was so scared that what I had been building was going to crumble right before my eyes and there's nothing I could do about it. So I'm still trucking along. I'm still working. I'm working in my car and I've got still the gym. I'm still doing the DoorDash, still a full-time student. I'm just wrapping up my agency license at this time. So I'm in the midst of that. And to be completely honest with you, I wasn't defeated. I wasn't miserable. I was just living the life. And that's when it's like when in the movies where they're like, it could be worse, two characters say, and it starts raining literally right after they say that.
Right. Yeah.
So I had that moment where I was like, it could be worse. Everyone has it worse. And so that next day, I actually got into a really bad car accident and my car was totaled. Most of my computer was hanging on for dear life because I had it in the front. Essentially, what had happened is someone hit me on the highway. I went and slammed in the barrier in the middle, and it was almost one of those moments where I knew what was going to happen. It was happening in slow motion. And I knew I was going to flip over this barrier right on the other side, and another car was going to hit. It was a weird feeling that I knew what was going to happen, but I was wrong. I know I was extremely lucky. I hit the barrier, the car came up and back down.
Wow.
And so instantly I knew. I was like, "Man, the noises my car's making, the smell, I gotta get out of this car." And all my stuff was in it. And so a lot of my stuff broke. It a lot of it. It was rough.
Dude, that was your home.
That was my home. And now
That's
I'm
all you
homeless.
had.
Yeah, it's
Holy
all I
shit.
had. And I went to the hospital later that day. Or maybe not later that day, like right after the scene of the accident was taken care of. I go to the hospital. Turns out I have a really bad concussion, really bad. And it was very important for me. This is what the doctor said. It's very important for you to be in a dark room, make sure it's very cool, make sure you're not stressed out, don't look at any screens. And I'm like thinking in my head, funny you say that because I don't have access to a room, definitely not a dark one, definitely not a cool one. And I definitely can't hop off of my screens or take it easy with no stress. Like I'm in a pretty stressful scenario. So I'm sitting at the hospital and I am like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I just lost the car that I was sleeping in. Hopefully my computer still works after this because I'm nothing without that thing right now. And I'm just getting into the mindset of, shoot, maybe all of this was a mistake. Maybe I screwed up. And what I did from there is what happened essentially was I moved in to my first deal's house, which we had been working on. The tenants had just moved out. We started construction. We ripped half the walls out. We ripped this big exterior wall out. There's no water, there's no power. And I was like, this will be my home base. So I got a battery operated air mattress. I got my computer. I had to charge it at the gym. I had to take a bus. I was sleeping on the ground of this house. And I was just like, man, I really hit rock bottom here. And once again, that same moment where it's things couldn't get any worse and then it gets worse. Essentially, from there, my grandfather had passed, which was extremely rough for me because he was one of my main inspirations to get into real estate. And so I am just so thankful that he had been alive for my first deal. And that's what happens. And it's the circle of life. It was just unfortunate timing. And then on top of that, a family member who I was extremely close with got very sick. And that was very hard for me to process. That was going on at the same time as his passing and the imminent collapse of my business. And from there, obviously, I still had the concussion. I still had to go out and work because I still had to support myself. From there, probably the cherry on top was the girl that I had been dating for the last 4, almost 5 years. She's the one who inspired me to keep going, to keep knocking on those doors, to keep doing what I'm doing. Just gone. She just gone.
Wow.
And so at that moment, the entire time I was like, man, this sucks, but at least I have her. Man, this sucks, but at least I have her. Man, that's unfortunate. Man, this is getting really bad, but at least I have her. Boom, gone. And so at that moment, I realized, I'm like, man, take whatever you want from me at this point. I don't really have anything left. And honestly, I think it's Dostoevsky, the philosopher, who says, be worthy of your sufferings. And so at this point, I really thought deeply because I don't think, like, no one thinks deeper than the guy who had just lost everything. And I'm sitting there really thinking, man, be worthy of my sufferings. I'm going through all this stuff. I'm going through everything. And I'm going to come out one way or the other. It's just about how I handle this situation. And I really thought it was a test from God, almost, hey, are you worthy of what I'm about to give you or are you not? I guess we'll find out. How do you deal with this situation? And man, as a young guy who essentially, in my mind, I was thinking, man, I just ruined my whole future. Thinking about what I had just lost was honestly a good thing for me. And what I did from there, man, I just sat on the computer, on the phone. I didn't get off the phone until I got what I needed to get done. And it was about a week and a half until closing. I didn't stop for a week and a half. That was my life. And I told them on the phone, I was like, hey, I know this is your job, but this is my life. I need to get this figured out or else I'm going to lose everything. And I said that to some random girl who works at a mortgage company. Sir, I'm just a receptionist. And I'm like, hey, I don't care if I wait for 8 hours with you. We'll talk about our days for 8 hours, but I need to talk to my account processor and I don't care what it takes because this is my life. And so from there, I was able to pull myself out of the situation. This second deal or that second deal that put me in that bad situation was the best deal that I had yet. So one of my best ones. And so I think it's going back to what I was saying. Are you worthy of your sufferings? Are you worthy of getting these amazing opportunities and these blessings from, rock bottom? And I think that was a great example of, hey, this was one of the deals I suffered the most, the deal I suffered the most. But then I turned around and it was the best deal. This is the first deal I took a paycheck. Then all of a sudden things got a little easier. Then all of a sudden I built a reputation. Then I rolled that into the next deal and it exponentially it went from 2 houses to, the portfolio we have now. And so I think what I can dedicate growing that portfolio from nothing. I had $500 initially. Then I raised some money. I closed on a deal. I went through that, closed on that deal. Then I essentially kept on rolling the capital again and again. I think I dedicate all of that to being consistent and consistently good. For example, if you call me and you need something and I'm going to give you a favor, it's always going to be good. It's never going to be a headache. It's never going to be hard. It's always going to be easy because I'm just that guy. And so that was the mindset that I had to keep no matter what, or else I was going to lose everything. It was all or nothing. Being consistent and being honest. I'll tell you what, there were a lot of times, and I'll be honest with you, there were a lot of times where I felt like telling people things were a little bit better than they were. But I knew that's not how you can operate. And I know more than anybody else as a real estate agent. Like you said the other day, you told your sellers not to sell. You had a big paycheck coming, but you didn't even think about the paycheck. You thought about, all right, my sellers, how are they best off? What best serves them? And if that means me not making any money, so be it. And I think operating in that kind of box, I think that's what.
Yeah, and it's really operating from the frequency of abundance, right? I know I have more coming. And that's why I'm willing to tell my client that I'm about to make a huge check from, not to sell their house because I know it's best for them. And I know you operate from the same frequency. Like I've heard even just a little bit of your story, and those are the people I want to be around because we're on a different frequency, and our intentions are not for the money, it's to help others. And dude, I respect that about your story.
Yeah.
It's genuinely inspiring, and I think I can sit here and talk to you all day.
Oh, honestly.
And listen to your stories,
yeah,
man.
of course.
For the sake of time, I'm gonna ask you one more question, and
Of course.
we're gonna wrap up. But what's the biggest piece of advice you would give to your old self, your young self, or anyone who's looking to start out and become quote unquote successful?
Yeah.
What would that be?
That's a great question. And I think what that would be is keep going. Just keep going. If you genuinely believe in something with all your heart and you genuinely are pursuing something that you think will change the game for you, change your life, dude, never stop. I think that's the biggest thing is if you're working on something, there's no reason to quit it. And I think another thing is anything bad that's going on, it will pass. I've gone through a lot of tremendously terrible situations, whether it was that story or just thinking about relationships that had ended and left me in pieces. It's all mindset. And so if I could go back and sit there with my old self, I'd be like, man, your mindset controls everything. Everything. You could be doing the same thing, two people with different mindsets, and one's attacking every single second, like they don't have a second to waste. One's going through the motions. And I would say that guy that's attacking will always win. So honestly, just keep attacking. Don't give up. Every single second is a gift. It really is. Use it to its fullest potential. Yeah.
I agree, man. And it all comes down to the way we perceive the world around us. Because
Right.
at the end of the day, man, if you didn't have those hardships you went through, your story would be boring.
Exactly.
And those hardships
Mhm.
made your story so much more impactful and
Right.
inspiring. And I agree with you, man. Anyone going through those hardships, just know one day once you get through to it and you get to the
Mhm.
other side, that's going to be a story you can tell to help others. Man, thank you so much.
Of
Where
course.
can people reach you if they want to just connect with you and have questions?
Andrew Dettling on Instagram, Andrew Dettling on LinkedIn. We're starting TikTok up. We're starting Reels. We're starting YouTube. Honestly, Andrew Dettling on Instagram, DM me. I am always open and honored to help anybody, any young investors.
Thank you so much, Andrew. This was a
Yeah,
pleasure.
of course.
Appreciate having you on, and I hope you have an amazing day.
Thank you, Ari. I appreciate it, man.